Bet your ass I'm wearing a Keanu Reeves shirt. Whoa. The Matrix Resurrections is the fourth installment in the Matrix series, and if you have followed me for the past couple of weeks, I reviewed the entire trilogy. I really love the first Matrix movie. I think it's a sci-fi masterpiece, one of the greatest sci-fi movies ever made, but the sequels are extremely disappointing. Reloaded is okay. Revolutions I absolutely despise. I think it's a terrible movie. So as I had said in some of those reviews, I was cautiously optimistic going into Resurrections because this could have been the best of the Matrix sequels, or it could have just been an absolute train wreck. Set 60 years after the events of Revolutions, the film follows Neo, who lives a seemingly ordinary life under his original identity as Thomas A. Anderson in San Francisco. But when a new version of Morpheus offers him the red pill and reopens his mind to the world of the Matrix, which has become more secure and dangerous in the years since the Smith infection, Neo joins a group of rebels to fight a new enemy. So as I said, I was cautiously optimistic about Resurrections. And that was mostly because I wasn't really sure what to expect. Was it going to be more in line with the first movie, or was it going to be more philosophical heavy-handedness bullshit that plagued the sequels? Resurrections, I'm not going to say Resurrections is a bad movie, because it's not. It has the absolute extreme highs that the Matrix sequels have had. But it also offers the extreme lows of the Matrix sequels. This movie, Resurrections, is honestly a conundrum. It's a paradox within itself. Because for almost every positive thing, that positive thing just leads to a negative thing for me that is connected to that positive thing. I don't know. I've complained in my reviews, and I've seen people complain about the Matrix sequels relying too heavily on philosophical themes and getting a little too heavy-handed with that, and I agree. They're back in this movie, but not to the extent that I thought they would be. It gets really heavy-handed towards the end, which I wasn't a huge fan of. However, the movie becomes more self-aware, nostalgic, self-referential, and meta. Neo's place in the story is like aware, like he's a video game developer, I guess. I don't know, I should be saving this for a spoiler review, and I am going to do a spoiler review on Resurrections once I watch the movie again. I guess Cliff Notes, he's a video game developer that developed games called The Matrix. So The Matrix is like a video game trilogy in this world, and that's how it's self-referential. There's even like a jab at Warner Brothers, who is the studio that puts these movies out. It wasn't as prominent as I thought it was going to be. Early reviews that I had read and watched said that that was a huge thing in the movie. The meta aspects of the movie weren't in the movie as much as I thought they were, but it was mostly in that first act, but when they were there, did not work for me. Completely took me out of the movie because they were trying to nostalgia bait you with fan service. This, to me, was fan service done wrong. It was just fan service for the sake of fan service. It was, here's archive footage of these original scenes from the first Matrix movie that you all love, and that's it. Like, it didn't really serve the purpose of the story, and the movie tries to come up with excuses as to why that archive footage makes sense within the story the movie is building. But for me, the fan service and the nostalgia bait and the meta aspects of the movie didn't work for me. It was really distracting and annoying, and it reminded me of how much better the original Matrix movie is than this movie and the previous two sequels. There's honestly interesting concepts that expand the lore and the mythology of the world of the Matrix. The movie actually had new ideas. I really did grade them in my head, and I was like, you know what? I actually really like some of the concepts and the ideas that this movie has, even if those ideas do come back around at the end and they get a little heavy-handed. And the science philosophy that this movie's trying to tell us, yeah, it's not, I don't really consider Matrix sequels science fiction movies. I consider them science philosophy movies. Yeah, that happened, but again, at the same time, I was like, though that's a cool concept. I just wish that those concepts and ideas were expanded upon more, but every time that ideas and concepts were brought up from Reloaded and Revolutions, they just felt like afterthoughts. They weren't expanded on really at all, and that was really a detriment to the film. In terms of where the story goes, there are characters in here that I really liked. New characters. Jessica Henwick's character, Bugs. Awesome. Loved her. Thought she was the best new character of the movie. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II as Morpheus. Again, like, I gotta watch the movie again. There's a new version of Morpheus in this movie, and it tries to really explain why Lawrence Fishburne didn't come back or why they didn't ask him to come back, and instead it's Yahya Abdul-Mateen. I don't know. Everything with Morpheus in this movie, I didn't really buy, and I think it's because most of the movie makes complete sense. For me, what didn't make sense was the explanation for Morpheus and what Morpheus was actually doing in the movie, and what they actually do with Morpheus. Everything with Morpheus was a bit hazy. That's not to take anything away from Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, because he is really good as a different version of Morpheus. I guess that's what it is, a different version. The Morpheus thing is just so hazy to me. I couldn't really figure it out. It was the one thing in the movie that didn't make sense to me, and it raised more questions than it answered. You know, this movie makes sense in the long run. Picking up, referencing events from the previous three. Like, oh, hey, here's what happened with the peace treaty. Okay, that felt like natural progression. But even then, as this movie moved on, I felt like the story was digressing in ways. Because it would seem like it wanted to do its own thing, but because it is a fourth Matrix movie, and people are going to be like, well, if this movie is its own thing and doesn't reference the other three movies, then does that make the other three obsolete? And what about those movies? It feels like it's a reboot, a sequel, and a remake. And a spin-off. All put into one movie. And it's not that. It's mostly a sequel, but it wants to act like it's its own thing, too. It wants to really get away from Reloaded and Revolutions and go back to the spirit of the first movie, and it really kind of wants to differentiate itself from the first movie as well. And none of that really meshed well with me. Neo's journey, his drive, his goal, I was on board with. And him having to step back into the Matrix after such a long time, I was on board with. The reasoning for stuff that happened in the third one that has to be explained in this one, I guess I was on board with. I was sometimes not on board with it. It's something I have to talk about more in the spoiler review when I do it. But I guess the reasoning behind why Neo comes back into the Matrix is a lot better, and the drive and the goal is a lot better than how the narrative plays out itself. The story is, once again, fairly simple. People trying to get Neo to come back into the Matrix, and trying to reintroduce him to the Matrix, because now there's this other threat that's happening, and it ends up becoming a fetch quest that I actually liked. It involves Trinity. Carrie-Anne Moss isn't in the movie all that much. I bought the reasons why she wasn't in the movie all that much. Wish I had seen more, but at least they give her some kick-ass action at the end. But when everything's ramping up at the end and we actually get to the place where Neo has to accomplish this goal, the third act felt very anticlimactic for me. I don't know. This movie is such I don't know the right terminology. It's just a mix of everything. It was like everything from the original trilogy and things that it's trying to do on its own, meshing together with mixed results, I guess. I do want to talk about one thing that plagued the entire movie, though, that I didn't like throughout the entire thing, and that is the visual effects. The Matrix came out in 1999 and had way better visual effects. It's 2021. These visual effects in this movie looked low budget at times. Lots of slow-mo. You could tell was filmed at a different frame rate, and then they had to switch it up in post-production, and it looks terrible because it wasn't filmed in the right frame rate for slow motion. There's shots that look like they just, I don't know. There were shots that stuck out like a sore thumb that looked like they were using a cheap, inexpensive camera, and that really bothered me. I don't have anything good to say about the visual effects in this movie. I just thought that they were really weak. I know that this review is probably not very informative and it's very vague, and I'm trying to be very vague because unlike the original trilogy, I've seen Matrix Reloaded, Revolutions so many times, and I'm only coming off of one viewing of Resurrections. So I definitely need to watch it again, which is why a ranking right now would be really hard. I mean, I know that The Matrix, the first one, is the extreme high of the series. That is a sci-fi masterpiece. Revolutions is at the very bottom. I hate that movie with a passion. I think it's terrible. Only a couple of redeeming things about it. The rest of it is schlock. When it comes to ranking Reloaded and Resurrections, though, where do I put them? I have no idea. And I think that that's why I really need to watch Resurrections again, and I'm going to, mostly because I can do that spoiler review and try and, hammer out a couple of things that I may have missed, and that whole Morpheus thing that didn't really make any sense to me, or probably wasn't explained and I just missed it, I just wish that Resurrections didn't have as much fan service or, nostalgia bait as it did, and was more of its own thing, which it was, but then it also has to tie into the original trilogy, and it's trying to create new ideas that are good, but at the same time didn't work for me. This is, I don't know, these Matrix sequels are so, I guess to bring up the word that I used at the beginning of the review, a paradox, a conundrum, because they should be a lot better than they actually are, but I don't know, like, did we need a fourth Matrix movie? And that's kind of what I walk away from with this movie. Like, there are things in, obviously, The Matrix, which is the extreme high, as I've stated, that I'm going to walk away remembering. Like, the lobby shootout spree, Morpheus training Neo, the subway fight with Agent Smith. Even Reloaded has things I'm going to walk away remembering. The freeway chase, the chateau sword fight. Even Revolutions has something I remember, and that is Neo fighting Agent Smith after he assimilates Oracle in the Matrix in that really long, boring battle on Zion. The thing is, for Resurrections, while I don't like aspects of Reloaded and I hate most of Revolutions, like, I can still walk away from those movies with scenes ingrained in my head. Resurrections, I don't know, nothing stuck out to me. Nothing was memorable all that much. There wasn't a single action scene or a single special effect moment that really grabbed me. So I guess in a way, Resurrections is going to be that sequel that stands out like a sore thumb. And it's strange because I think it's because the special effects and the visual effects just weren't that great this time around. Like, I guess it just wasn't as mind-blowing as people are going to make it out to be. Because I don't remember anything with Resurrections, like, I just walk away thinking, well, kind of a waste to have a fourth Matrix movie, unless if they're doing a completely new trilogy. And I think that because it's so nostalgia baity and fan servicey, it doesn't really justify its existence. I'm going to do the best I can to give this a letter grade. I think I'm going to go slightly below Reloaded, and I'm going to give The Matrix Resurrections a C. I don't know, that could jump up, that could jump down on repeat viewings. I'm going to watch it again at some point this weekend, probably Sunday, and I'll do a spoiler review, but I don't know, like, it's such a hodgepodge of things that work and don't work, but I'll say it's at least better than Revolutions. That's a win right there. So guys, did you watch The Matrix Resurrections? Drop me some feedback in the comment section below. I will leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.